Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gail Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
I have a really interesting guest for you today. Her name is Laura Doyle, and she is a relationship expert, a best-selling author, and a podcaster. But before I tell you about Laura, I just want to remind all of you to go to my website, spunkyoldbroad.com. You'll be able to see the radio shows there and all the other information that I have to give you. And you can also go to YouTube and sign up for my Spunky Old Broad channel so that we'll be able to keep in contact with all the things that are going on with me. But Laura is a really interesting person because she is a best-selling author, a New York Times best-selling author, and she was the perfect wife until she actually got married. And when she told her husband how to be tidier, more romantic, and more ambitious, he avoided her. So she dragged him to marriage counseling and nearly divorced him. And then she asked, in desperation, happily married women for their secrets. And that's when she got her miracle. The man who has wooed her return. Her books have been translated into 19 languages in 30 countries and accidentally started a worldwide movement. Well, Laura, it is just a delight to have you here today. We've got a bunch of questions for you. And I had to laugh when I was reading this about you because I had a husband. In fact, I said to somebody yesterday, and I was married for 45 years before he passed away.
Oh.
But there was not one person, not his family, not my family, not neighbors, not friends, that ever thought we should get married because we were so different. And yet we were sublimely happy for 45 years. So it's just interesting what makes a marriage work. And I have a whole commentary on that, but that's your area of expertise. So let's talk about marriage counseling because people talk about, this is something they need to do to make a marriage work. And you say it can be good and it can be bad. So where do you stand on that?
Well, Dr. Carson, first of all, I just want to say congratulations on this 45 years of marriage. It's a rare thing. I almost feel like we should just give out trophies as a society, right? Because marriage matters. And you had a long and, well, it sounds like it was a happy one despite nobody being in your corner that you guys should get married. Was this a happy marriage for 45 years?
It was there are always struggles,
Of course.
when you raise children, there are disagreements, there are all of that. But we just had so much fun together, and we came from different backgrounds, different religions, different everything. And I was a professional. He worked with his hands. It was a happy, happy marriage. Yeah. And you know why? Because our values were the same, and he was a good person. And that's the key.
Yeah, actually, I would go a little further and give you all the credit. I'm sure he was a wonderful guy, but as the woman, my experience has been that women are so much the keepers of the relationship that we really get so much say over the culture of whether it's wall-to-wall hostility or whether it's going to be fun and playful. And what I hear you saying is you had a fun, playful relationship, and so I give you so much credit for creating that, even though there were challenges, as you say, there always are. No marriage is perfect, but well done, Dr. Carson. I'm happy to hear. You are a role model for us that it is possible to spend your entire life with one person, and that there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So tell us about marriage counseling, Laura.
All right. Well, so I dragged my husband to marriage counseling. In fact, I was on the marriage counselor's gray couch when I realized that my marriage was hopeless and that I was either going to spend the rest of my life in a loveless marriage or I was going to have to get divorced. And so I decided that I would go ahead and get divorced. And this was maybe 7 or 8, 9 years into the marriage. And but the problem was that I was too embarrassed. People had been to the wedding just not that many years before, and I didn't want to admit that kind of failure. I was worried I was going to lose my status in the tribe, right? Because you do in a way. And I decided that I would ask these women. I was asking women like you, although you've been married a lot longer than the women I talked to, uh, and uh, and they said things that I thought were so shocking. I didn't even really understand what they were talking about at the time. One of them said, "Well, I try never to criticize my husband, no matter how much it seems like he deserves it." And I said, "Well, yeah, but have you got anything else that I can really use? Because I don't know how I would do that." And so, but little by little, I decided to experiment with their suggestions. And I remember I had been doing that for not that long, actually. And I remember I came through the door and my husband's face lit up. He was happy to see me again. And that had been gone for so long. So I thought, okay, wow, this is working. And so I started a little support group for myself because I found that now that I knew what to do to have a happy marriage, that was great, but it wasn't so easy to do it. I couldn't always get myself to do it. I remember even after I knew what to do differently, my parents were divorced, so I had been following a failed recipe. So now I got this new recipe from women who were happily married, and but I couldn't quite do it. So I thought, well, if I get some other people to do it with me, that'll help me do it. So I had a little support group in my living room of 5 women, and we all started. I would say, "Hey, try this or say this," and I had all these little cheat phrases for them, and they started having miracles in their marriage, just like I was having in my marriage. One woman, her husband won the sales contest at work and took them on the most romantic getaway of their lives. So we knew that something was up. One woman, she came and said, "Oh, he painted the family room, and we've been bickering about that for months, and he just got up and did it this morning." So we knew we were onto something. And then someone said, "Hey, what if you write this down for my cousin in Florida? She wants to know what we're doing." And so I did. And that became my first book, which, to everyone's surprise, became a New York Times bestseller and was published in all those countries and all those languages and started a worldwide movement. It's been about 20 years since that happened. So, I spent 9 years or not 9 years, I'm sorry. I spent several years and $9,000 in marriage counseling, and my marriage didn't get any better. But by following the things that happily married women did, I was able to really transform the whole thing. Now I've been married for 31 years, and I have a wonderful, playful, passionate relationship where my husband
You're
just
getting high statistics, so 31 years isn't bad.
it's not bad. I'm going to catch up to you, maybe. I'm going to try.
Well, you also say there's one question that you should never ask a man. What is that?
And I used to ask it to him all the time because I thought this was how I was going to have intimacy, Dr. Carson. I thought, well, if I could just get him to open up, then we can have our, deep conversations that I wanted to have. So I kept saying to him, how do you feel? How did you feel when your father was yelling at you as a child or whatever? I had my little junior therapist hat on. And the problem with that, so my husband would say things like, "Oh, I feel hungry, or I feel with my hands." I thought, oh, he doesn't know. He's emotionally stunted, And it turns out women are the ones that have emotional brilliance, right? In fact, there was a study at the University of Toronto, and I hope you're sitting down for this because this is rather shocking. But here's what they discovered in this study. They found out that women are more emotional than men. So
Well,
I don't.
know. Don't we?
Yeah, I thought so too. I'm like, well, that was research money well spent, right? We know women are more emotional than men. And so we are the ones with the emotional brilliance. And so the funny thing is, a lot of times, like, doing like what I was doing, I was trying to ask my husband how he felt to get him to open up. Well, the real interesting part, what makes relationships, that creates the glue in relationships, the lifelong fascination, the commitment, is when I am aware of how I'm feeling and I'm expressing that. And so, because I'm the one with the emotional brilliance in our relationship. And so we find that asking men how they feel is just a little uncomfortable. It's sort of like if you were asking a woman who was wearing a bathing suit and eating a piece of pizza how much she weighed. You just wouldn't do that. So maybe just don't ask men how they feel either. That's not really their bellywick.
Well, that's really true because my husband was very black and white about everything. Even though he was a homebody, even though he was very involved with the family and with kids, it was black or white. I mean, it was like, this is the way it is and this is the way I think. Whereas I would say, well, what about, or that could be, or whatever. But he was very black and white about everything. So I do agree that there is a difference in the way we perceive things. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you also say the red flags where a wife would be better off leaving her marriage. What is that?
A red flag you're asking about?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
well, I'll tell you an embarrassing story here. So when I wrote my first book, so my husband and I had been really going at it with fighting. So we would say mean, horrible things to each other. It's really embarrassing, but this is what was happening. And I would rage at him and just rip him up one side and down the other, and then he would answer in kind, right? So it was not pretty around here. And so but I knew one thing I understood from that experience was that verbal abuse was something that you could recover from, because I knew that that's what we had been doing around here, and now that's totally cleared up. That doesn't ever happen anymore. But when I wrote that first book, I thought, well, I don't know what I would say, if a woman said she's being physically abused, or if he's always cheating on her, or maybe he's got an active addiction. And so I said in my first book, well, if you're married to one of those, then gee, I don't know, I think it might be hopeless. Basically, I just kind of stole everyone's hope. And what ended up happening was a lot of women got a hold of one of my books, and they said, he's an alcoholic, but we've got these 4 kids together, and I'm not going to leave. So I'm going to use these intimacy skills anyway. And lo and behold, they were able to create passionate, playful relationships. And they even saw improvement in his drinking. Like I had one woman who used the spouse fulfilling prophecy, we call it, with her husband. She started telling him he was a moderate drinker. Well, she thought he was just a raging alcoholic, but she started focusing on how he was a moderate drinker instead of focusing on how he was an alcoholic and maybe trying to nag him to drink less and things like that, which usually works the opposite of the way that you want it to. And do you know, so she went around, she found some evidence. So he's like, well, he doesn't drink and drive. And, he doesn't drink as much as this one friend. So she just kind of found some evidence. And then not long after that, they were going on a cruise, and they gave him 2 drink tickets or they said for $20, you could have unlimited drinks for the day on one of these excursions. And so she thought, oh, well, he's definitely going to take the $20 upgrade so he can drink all day. But he didn't. And she was shocked. And she said, why aren't you going to upgrade? And he said, no. He said, I think, 2 drinks, it seems like enough. I mean, I just like to drink moderately. He said it right back to her, and he was acting it. So we've actually seen these incredible transformations, no matter what the situation. So I like what Norman Vincent Peale said about possibility. He said, always see the possibilities, for they are always there. And that is what we experience when women get a hold of the intimacy skills and start practicing them in their marriage. To paraphrase Thomas Wolfe, miracles not only happen, they happen all the time. So we actually haven't seen anything that where it's impossible to not only save the marriage, but to fix it, to make it a marriage that's worth saving, one that's worthy of the movies, worthy of your life.
Wow, amazing, just amazing. So, I'll tell you, this is a problem I never had in terms of getting my husband to help out more with kids and the housework. As a matter of fact, he probably had more problem with me getting me to do those things because I was always, working and so forth and so on. But he always was there. He was always there for the kids. He was always there to help with the house. He was just always there. So how can you get your husband to help out more with kids and housework and other responsibilities?
Well, so here's what's interesting. You give the impression, and I'm sure it's true, that your husband's just was a helpful guy, right? And but I suspect I would be I'd be surprised if we didn't investigate your marriage and find out that you were doing some things that actually created the opening for him to make all those contributions by being grateful, sort of appreciating. Also, I call it receiving graciously, right? But one of the things you can do if that has gone missing, so people might hear you and think, well, it's just she just had a good husband, right? But it's actually there were things that you were doing, Dr. Gail Carson, that created that. And so I want to share a couple of those. So one of them is I call it expressing your desires in a way that inspires. And what I used to do, sadly, my husband would be watching TV and then I would say, well, this kitchen is a disaster. And I thought he was going to jump up off the couch and turn off the TV and start cleaning the kitchen. Well, that never happened. Of course it didn't, right? That's not how this works. And so, in fact, I think in some ways, like if I say, hey, John, this kitchen is a disaster. My husband's name is John. Then I think all he could probably hear was, hey, John, and then wah, 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 like the Peanuts parents, right? You just couldn't really even hear the rest because men can't really hear us when we're complaining. I think most people can't really hear us when we're complaining. So what I learned finally was to express what I wanted. My husband wants to be my hero, but he needs to know how to make me happy. And a complaint doesn't really do that. You think I thought I was expressing my desires, but I wasn't. So now I have a magic formula for that. And the formula is, and if you have it, and if you're listening and you can write this down, this is something worth writing down. You say, I would love, and then you fill in just the end result, not how it would happen or who would do it, just the thing that you're wanting. So with the kitchen, for example, I said, I would love a clean kitchen. And my husband said, okay. He said, I'll clean it. And that was over 20 years ago. And he's been cleaning the kitchen ever since. I don't ever do the dishes. Very, very rarely do I do that. He does it because he knows it makes me happy. He, the sink is always empty. He cleans the sink because he knows it makes me so happy. So when I gave him the chance to be my hero and then acknowledged it, right, expressed how happy it made me that he was doing that, he was more than happy. And now he does jump off the couch with a smile to do it because he knows that he's being successful and making his wife happy, which, by the way, I've asked thousands of men, how important is it to you that your wife is happy? And they all say the same thing. They say, oh, it's the most important thing, or it's everything. In the United Kingdom, they say it's imperative. So you have to ask yourself, is your husband really so different? Maybe he wants to be your hero too.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Well, I do have to give the credit to my husband, though. And I think it's because when I married him, he already had 2 children, and he was used to taking care of them and doing a lot for them. So he was just naturally that way. I mean, my husband, believe this or not, this will give you an idea of the kind of guy he was, got custody of his children back in 1960, which was unheard of.
Wow.
So he was a special kind of guy. But you also say that there's an aphrodisiac for men and that it's free and it works fast and it's effective. So what is it? Tell us.
Yes. So the aphrodisiac is, and this is another good one to write down, it's respect. It's respect. And what's interesting about respect is I think we all kind of grow up hearing that men need respect, if you grow up in a religious background, right? There's, wives, respect your husband, husbands, love your wives. And so I remember thinking like, well, I am respectful, except for the way he dresses and the way he drives and, the way he chews, right? So yeah. So I was adorable. I just had no idea what respect looked like. And I also thought that it was my job as a wife to give my husband helpful suggestions, right? So I was going to help him be more ambitious at work. I was going to help him do his resume, and I was going to help him dress a little better. And I did not know at the time that helpful in wife language is critical in husband language. So every time I was trying to be helpful, I was actually just poking holes in the bucket of our intimacy, really, of our connection, because it made him defensive. The subtext of that was, you don't really know how to dress yourself. You don't really know how to get ahead at work. So I'm going to have to do it for you. And the thing my husband wants the most from me is to look in my eyes and see that I trust that he's capable and confident and to expect the best outcome from him. And so when I do that, well, it's just amazing the fireworks that happen in the bedroom. And when I wasn't doing that, I remember standing with my hands on my hips. And once again, he's watching TV, right? And I said, boy, we haven't had sex in 2 months, and the average couple does it 2.5 weeks. So I think we should have sex. Well, that didn't work either. I was not getting, I thought he would again jump off the couch and just give me a passionate kiss and sweep me off my feet into the bedroom. Never happened. But when I brought the respect, it was amazing how it just all came back. And that's when it actually got to be much scarier, right? I remember really having butterflies in my stomach at that point because I was no longer in control. I felt desired, which I loved, but it was also kind of scary. Like, whoa, he's coming after me, and I realized that I had a lot of fear about that. And anyway, so the respect piece is the best aphrodisiac on the planet for men.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's so simple. It is so simple,
Yeah.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left. So I want to ask you, first of all, how can people get in touch with you? Where can they find your books? And I don't know if you have a gift for our audience or not, but whatever you'd like to tell them, I'd love for you to share.
Oh, I do have a gift for the audience. And it's really something fun we have going on right now, which is I have the Adored Wife Roadmap. It's absolutely free. And you can get it by going to lauradoyle.org, lauradoyle.org. You can download it. And it not only does it lay out the 6 steps to having an intimate, passionate, peaceful relationship without your man's conscious effort, but it also will give you the 3 mistakes that I see just about everyone making when trying to get their husband's time and attention and affection. And once you know what those mistakes are, and you can flip them, right? You can reverse it and start just attracting his time, attention, and affection like an irresistible magnet, which is how we all want to feel.
Fantastic. That sounds great. So, folks, remember, it's .org. It's not .com. It's .org. So it's Laura, Laura, Doyle, Doyle.org. Go there, get her roadmap. If this is what you need to put a little spark into your marriage or to make it work or to make either one of you feel better, here she's got a roadmap for you. And you can tell she's been through the mill and has come out the other side. So it is well worth it. Anything that we have not covered, because we do have a few minutes left, Laura, anything that we have not covered?
Well, I think I want to, if I could just leave the audience with one cheat phrase that they could practice just for the fun of it. I think that might be, do we have time for that? Can I just give them one?
Yeah. Great.
Great. All right. So this is just to experiment. If by some chance you are a bit controlling like I was, right? I kind of just thought I knew best how to do everything. Then one wonderful way to defer your husband back to his own thinking when he's making a decision that is really just about him, like he's making a decision for work or how he's getting dressed, or maybe it's something he handles for the both of you. Maybe he files the taxes for the both of you, and maybe you've trained him like I did to always ask your opinion before he does it, so he doesn't get in trouble later, right? So one really powerful phrase to just kind of let him take more initiative and think for himself is to say, if he says, what should I wear, or which, should I take the freeway? You can just say, whatever you think. And this is going to just reflect that you think he's smart and capable. And you can even add, I trust you to that. Whatever you think, I trust you. And it's really a magical phrase for beginning to restore the intimacy. So, and it's just kind of indispensable to relinquish inappropriate control if that's something that's going on in your marriage. So just want to give everyone something to experiment with.
And he doesn't care that you're not really giving him an answer.
No, they don't. He will. Okay, I'll tell you, one student actually, she did say this phrase. She said, whatever you think, when her husband was asking her what he should do with the cell phone plan. And she said, oh, whatever you think. And he did look at her funny because she was changing up the dance. She had always told him everything that he should do. She was a CFO at a private school. So she'd been controlling a lot of stuff. And but she just reiterated. He said, no, you got to tell me, what should I do? And she said, well, whatever you think, I trust you. And now they had been sleeping in separate beds for 6 months, and she was thinking about getting divorced. And he went away, handled the cell phone thing. She thought he was going to mess it up, but he didn't. He did fine. And then he came back later that night and said, you were so nice today. And she got tears in her eyes. She still gets tears in her eyes when she talks about this story, because she almost threw out this man who was the love of her life. And they slept in the same bed that very same night. And that was the beginning of a slow dance of reconciliation in their marriage, where the playfulness and passion was restored.
Wow. What a great story. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed listening to Laura. She is a wealth of information when it comes to relationships. And if you're all about living regret-free, this is the way to do it. So go visit lauradoyle.org. And Laura, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Carson. It's been a pleasure. It was great meeting you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.